And welcome to this week's episode of the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and occasional guests guide you through the world of online communications in a show which was the brainchild of John Popham. And in true fashion, we usually start with how the weather is. So Paul and I are both in the same part of the world. Paul, we'll start with you. Paul Russell, our special guest today. How are you, Paul? How's the weather where you are?
I'm very well, thank you, Pauline. Great to be back on the show. And it's a mix of a bit of blue sky and a bit cloudy, but not raining. So all good.
Yeah, same here. Could see a bit of sunshine coming through the cloud over there, and I managed to get out to a kick through the leaves earlier on, which is great for the mental health. Sweyn, what about yourself? How are you? Where are you? And how's the weather?
Very well. I'm in Orkney as usual, and it's a bright, kind of cold, bright day today. Any leaves that we do have blew away weeks ago, so that's the end of that.
Okay. Probably a good thing, so you don't have to slip and fall on them as people need to be careful not to do. So we've picked up a few things that are happening around this time of the year, and from today, Monday the 15th to Sunday 21st November is National Safeguarding Adults Week. And we picked this up from Safeguard Essex, who will be sharing daily posts to raise awareness and share support information. They're reminding that it's an important issue needing community to work together and remain alert to the signs of people having safeguarding issues. And the week is a time for organizations to come together to raise awareness of important safeguarding issues, to facilitate conversations and raise awareness of safeguarding best practice. And Safeguarding Adults Week hopes the week will enable more organizations and individuals to feel confident in recognizing signs of abuse and neglect and recording and reporting safeguarding concerns. And there's a video on the website giving more information on what safeguarding is. And the hashtag for the week-long campaign is hashtag Safeguarding Adults Week. And the 2021 theme is creating safer cultures. And each day, the campaign will focus on a specific topic to facilitate conversations around the theme of creating safer cultures. And the next one we've picked up is Anti-Bullying Week, the same week, this week up to Sunday the 21st. And this is from the Anti-Bullying Alliance and respectme.org. You guys a couple of websites that concentrate on this. The week is coordinated in England and Wales by the Anti-Bullying Alliance and has the theme One Kind Word. And in Scotland, the week is coordinated by anti-bullying agency Respect Me, and in Northern Ireland by the Northern Ireland Anti-Bullying Forum. So thanks, Sweyn, for picking up the different nations' agencies for this. The information we've got is they say that kindness is more important today than it has ever been. The isolation of the last year has underlined how little acts of consideration can break down barriers and brighten the lives of the people around us. And this is one of the reasons that One Kind Word has been chosen as the theme of Anti-Bullying Week taking place this year. The week kicks off with Odd Socks Day. So all you need to do is wear odd socks, and it's a great way to celebrate what makes us all unique in Anti-Bullying Week. And the call to action is a couple of things. Ask if someone's okay. Say you're sorry. Just say, hey. In a world that can sometimes feel like it's filled with negativity, one kind word can provide a moment of hope. It can be a turning point, changing someone's perspective, can change their day, change the course of conversation, and break the cycle of bullying. Best of all, one kind word leads to another. Kindness fuels kindness. So from the playground to Parliament, and from our phones to our homes, together our actions can fire a chain reaction that powers positivity. It starts with one kind word, and it starts today. I think we can all agree that anti-bullying and safeguarding are two great themes that we want to support.
I think they complement each other quite well. It's good, and it's good to see bullying, although focused on. I think Anti-Bullying Week is focused on schools. It's not exclusively about children and schools. It's about any sort of bullying behaviour in any context whatsoever. So we wish that great success.
We do. And under events, we are returning to our the 100% Digital Leeds skills for supporting digital inclusion sessions are going on until the 6th of December. And we've been highlighting this over the last couple of weeks, because I think we think it's a great set of sessions that people can really benefit from. And I think you can still sign up to it now. It's a free 6-week course. It started on the 1st of November. And the session today, they were in two of the same sessions every day on the days they're running it. So it's on Mondays. And the session this morning and this afternoon is on platforms. And this is about finding out how to make best use of a range of digital platforms to communicate with people and help them keep in touch with friends and family and other social activity. Find out how you can use platforms like Zoom and Teams to deliver your services remotely. I think this is a particularly good one, because I think for those of us who are promoting, like I am, a laptop lending library, I think encouraging people to borrow a laptop just to connect with their friends and family, I think is a key thing, and something we'll be emphasizing, especially with the run up to Christmas, you know, when we want to be in touch with people more than ever. What platform, Paul, we're on Zoom now, but what platforms do you prefer to use, or have you got a preference?
Oh wow, I think I've tried them all. Even the intriguingly entitled Blue Jeans. I don't know if that one's come across your table, but there's one out there called Blue Jeans. So I've tried that. Probably Zoom and Microsoft Teams, but no, I think I've tried them all. So
yeah,
I would like to say I've got a favorite, but sometimes I prefer not to use it and much more meet people.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Speaking of Meet, Google Meet is one of the ones that I've been using. I was showing someone how to use it this morning. Yeah. But you remember Jitsi in the first days of lockdowns, people were looking at different platforms, and Jitsi was had been out there for a long time, and people didn't really know about it, but some people started using it. I had a look at it. Apparently it's got much better since since those days of lockdown. So I'll be looking at it again with a colleague in the days to come, and I'll let you know what that's like.
Like it.
The other session that's next week on this 100% Digital Leeds session is on entertainment. And again, look, we're on the run up to Christmas. It sounds like a really good thing to be looking at. This is about finding out about a whole host of fun digital tools and resources linked to people's hobbies and interests, and how you can use them to inspire people to take their first steps with digital. Examples will include a 360-degree tour of Buckingham Palace, radio station apps, and a range of games. So being entertained online, Paul, do you use online entertainment much?
No, I don't. I've never been a computer gamer, unless the times in pubs when they had the Space Invaders games, but I'm not sure if that counts.
No, I don't know.
It wasn't online in my days. So.
Yeah. Sweyn, what about you? Are you a gaming person or a
not really
online?
But I do listen to the radio and music and things like that. Across the internet, it's hard to remember sometimes that it is the internet.
Yeah.
Some of it's integrated onto the telly, and you think you're just watching the telly, but it's actually coming through the internet.
Yeah.
But I think this is a really good. It's a really good set of sessions, and I think those two that we've highlighted today are just as good as the others. It should be about having fun as well as all the boring stuff like banking and applying for things and shopping and
absolutely stuff. I have a great memory when I was a child of watching a black and white version. It was the Eurovision Song Contest, and I don't know if it was one of those years Ireland won. As you know, Ireland won several times, but anyway, the sound on the TV, my parents' TV, failed, and it was consternation. And then of course I realized, I think, that it was on the radio as well. So we had the picture on the TV and the sound on the radio, and we thought we were marvelous, putting two things together.
Yeah, I do that with the cricket. I watch the cricket on the telly if I've subscribed to the right paid for platform, and then I try and listen to it on the radio. Slightly out of sync, so there's a few tricks you can do there to bring them back into sync, because the pictures take longer to get to you than the radio does.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
But there are tricks that you can fix that with. But that's an example of digital not really helping, because in the olden days, telly and radio would get to you at about the same time, so you could. Nowadays that's just not true.
Speaking of listening to things on the radio, I was listening to the rugby at the weekend. You may realize
the rugby,
Ireland beat the All Blacks. Oh, what a marvelous! Yeah, it was a marvelous match. Yes. But I was just listening to it on the radio, and actually the pictures were fine. You know, the things put into my head. It was very, very, very good description. So we were celebrating at the weekend with the.
Yes, I bet.
Great result.
It was amazing. Okay, so welcome to the show again, Paul Russell. We had you on about just over a year ago, I think, talking about Citizen Sim, and we'll catch up about that in a minute. But you're here today as an ambassador for the Digital Poverty Alliance. And from the blurb on the website of Digital Poverty Alliance, we know that you're an experienced advocate for the importance of digital diversity and inclusion, with over 35 years experience of working in the construction, design and technology manufacturing industries at AECOM, Ricoh and IBM, experiencing a wide range of senior roles as both customer and partner. You're a design thinker, coaching leaders, sales and product teams on the importance of asking why by encouraging a more human-centric approach to affordable accessibility and digital equality. You've worked on a wide range of scenarios ranging from smart cities, buildings and workspaces, joining IBM at the peak of the Internet of Things wave. And you've seen firsthand the importance of diversity with the role of AI and machine learning to help support the workplace transformation. So welcome back to the show, Paul. We're delighted to have you here again.
Thank you. No, I love to. It's, I had to sort of sit there and go, gosh, I wrote those words. So
yeah, absolutely. Well done. It's nice to reflect on that.
Yeah, I was reflecting on it as you were going. And I think, yeah, firstly, great to be back on the show. And I think that I think in my little blurb, I must have said the word diversity about 100 times. So I need to think about that. But interesting enough, it's relevant because diversity of thought against the problem of digital poverty is what we're in desperate need of, as opposed to, sometimes the raw materials like laptops and SIM cards, which are equally important, but getting people to kind of open their thinking. And since we last spoke, there's been a tremendous push towards not only converging on the problem, which is what we need to do, but equally diverging away from the problem to see if there are other problems that we're not addressing, which I think, we all probably experience that in our lives. So that's what I've been doing. And, I've subsequently left IBM 4 months ago. Seems like a long time ago. Loved the career at IBM and, becoming more of a freelancer, but equally picking up this role as ambassador for Digital Poverty Alliance, which is great. Really interesting work to do, and I can talk more about that on this.
Please do tell us more about it. Yeah, please tell us more about it. Yeah.
So I think the way I got attracted to it was the Citizen Sim that we chatted to earlier on, which was my story way back last year when I realised that I sat on a load of data, didn't really understand the problem that was facing, and kind of couldn't do anything about donating the data. So with an open mind, I connected to people. And I think that's one of the first things I've learned, a lot more than I learned before, which is the power of networking. And, networking with people who then, come back to you and say, would you be interested in talking about certain things? And I luckily, fortuitously bumped into Paul Finnis, who's the CEO of Digital Poverty Alliance. Paul and I got chatting, and he asked me a few months ago to step as an ambassador or someone who could help promote what the work is that DPA are doing, which I'll talk about, but also to bring that diverse thinking. And the good news is I've encountered a lot of other people who are ambassadors who are equally have got that diverse thinking. So it's a good, strong group of people. And the goal of the mission of DPA is to end digital poverty by 2030. Now, of course, we're very used to recently with COP26 having measurements and deadlines and dates, which it's a one thing. But I think what we're beginning to realize now, through some of the research, which we'll talk about as well, is that there is a lot of complexity. I call them shades of color here, that in terms of digital poverty is not necessarily what we thought it was. And I think that's beginning to make a lot of people realize that the solutions we put together so far are not necessarily going to become the answer to solving the problem. So we have this this 3-line whip about we're here as an alliance to convene, compel, and inspire collaboration. So that's really what an alliance is. So it's an alliance of people who we're bringing together to convene, and that's what we're busy doing now, is convening the group. The group is co-chaired by Lord Jim Knight and Baroness McGregor Smith. And there's some interesting people. The Institute of Engineering and Technology is one of the key sponsors. We had a launch recently at their building in London. And we've also got some great, membership from Curry's PLC. And they did some work with Tech for Teachers. The realization that a lot of teachers don't have laptops, tablets for working at home. And therefore their ability to help children during summer holidays and during lockdowns was not as great as perhaps people thought. So Curry's stepped in with some money to help provide part of an answer to that problem. And these problems, I think, are coming out all over the place. And it wasn't necessarily what we all thought they were. And that's really where this convene state that we're in is getting us to. And it's interesting with the increase of interest so for tomorrow, for example, there is an all-party parliamentary group discussion, which is being led by Darren Jones, who's MP for Bristol Northwest. And I fortunately will be on that group. And that is an opportunity for people to bring together evidence and thoughts regarding digital poverty. And it's aligned with a piece of work that the Digital Poverty Alliance has been commissioned, which is an interim poverty evidence report, which we've just produced its first draft. And the idea is that between now and by the middle of next year, the DPA, working with its partners and government, will produce a roadmap for the 2030 exit from this data poverty crisis that we face. So there's a lot of evidence work going on at the moment. And there's some things that we can talk about, I'm sure, about what we're finding that really underpin some of the things we've learned.
Yeah.
And the need for more diverse thinking, without a doubt, and more ambassadors. We're keen to get more and more ambassadors to join DPA.
Yeah,
there's lots of information about this on your website, digitalpovertyalliance.org. So I recommend that people go and have a look at that as well. If I can work out which bits to bring up, I'll try and display them as we chat.
Yeah, sure.
We noticed, Paul, that one of the other ambassadors is Dr. Kira Allman, who's been a guest on the show as well. And we know that she has a particular knowledge around how public libraries and their role in ending digital poverty. So we're very pleased to, because we regularly talk about them on the show, as you know. So we're very, very pleased to hear that. So what about go on.
Excuse me, I was just about to say, Kira she is the author of the interim report I just mentioned.
All right, okay, good.
So that connects that dot there between her being on your show before.
Yeah.
Is that going to be published? Is it published already, or
it will be published? It's at the moment a draft report.
Understand.
For the next, I think it's the next 6 weeks from tomorrow, there are going to be a number of these all-party group sessions to collect evidence. So and again, going back to that kind of statements I made before, is that I think we're now moving slowly past the immediate thought that it was an issue of devices. Shortage of devices, it was a shortage of data, and it was a shortage of skills. And those three foundation blocks are still there, of course.
Yeah.
But now, Kira's report, for example, is beginning to highlight there are some more qualitative issues that have been very difficult to measure, and we need to now understand them in a much better way. So, for example, in terms of research around people's experience of everyday digital poverty, what is it like to, be in a situation where you do not have access to a digital service? Really understanding that, I think we've made some natural assumptions, I think, generally as a country, but they're not wrong, but they're not as deep as they need to be. And my interest as a technologist, I suppose, is, from a design point of view of technology, how do we design websites? The government's move to more digital services. Everything seems to be, digitally online. You book an MOT, it's all done online. So, your COVID test, everything's more and more shifting to online, which from a strategic point of view makes sense. But of course, that's widening the gap. So a better understanding of how we design access to services, and then how do we design those services as well? Because what was I trying to do the other day? I was trying to do something on one of the government websites, and even I'm not going to say even but I 2 or 3 times I had to take a step back and go, where do you want to take me? How do I know that you want that? That kind of questioning the website, shouting almost at the screen, because you think, who designed this website? That was my thought. And of course, that's great for someone like me. I can navigate, but for someone else, regardless of age, that is not so easy. So there's part of the shades is the design of tech as well.
Yeah.
So I think this research that we're beginning to get into, more qualitative research as opposed to the quantitative stuff that we've done a lot of, is something Kira's driving in her report.
Right. Well, if you haven't read it already, you may know it well. Lou Downs wrote a great book called Good Design Guide or something like that. It's a very simple book. I can recommend it. Because I was a latecomer to good design myself, but I came across the government digital service, obviously, with going on conferences and camps and stuff like that. So yeah, I've come to appreciate design more, and I know the GDS has kind of spawned other good design in other sectors as well, and other sectors have a lot to offer too. So yeah, I totally
you're
agree
right.
with that.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think if government websites are less than ideal now, if it weren't for the government digital service, they really would truly be awful.
Yeah, yeah.
A very good point.
Yeah.
It's a very good point. Yeah, you've got to remember where we've been.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So true.
So what about on the skills side, Paul? What are you finding in the DPA, and what's your thoughts about the need for the future?
Well, I mean, these are, I suppose these are my, off the top of my head thoughts about skills. Is the one of the things that at the recent kind of board get together, there's a few people talking, and for example, I was talking to a colleague from British Computer Society who is also involved, and one of the things we're having is that the role of the community is becoming to raise its head in terms of that. I don't mean that an army of people, but the community as a whole. So I always frame this question that if I was Amazon and someone rang up Jeff Bezos and said, look, Jeff, we've got this problem. We've got 5 million people who are not online. We've got 2-point-something children who don't have necessary digital skills, things like that, that sort of evidence. And what would you do? And Jeff Bezos may say, and this is just my personal view, that well, actually, we are probably the closest organization physically to the community than anyone else, because we're delivering in everybody's street, pretty much. Probably more than the postman, more than the milkman, things like that. So, what would that look like if the Amazon van became a thing? And so that idea of how do we get the community, and whatever that is, to be part of this solution? Because a lot of the delivery points are still very remote in terms of equipment and data. It's still very abstract for lots of people. And the other thing that I think we're beginning to learn is social mobility of people who are in a digital poverty trap, let's say, are more likely to be outside their home. They may be out looking for work. They may be out of their house a lot more. So where is the access point? So this has moved the conversation into the retail scenario in the high streets.
Okay. Let me stop you there. When you say Amazon, I think, with my community head on, I think mobile libraries and community gardens as places where these kind of things could happen in a place where people aren't being asked to buy anything.
Absolutely,
they aren't being asked for their identification or there's fewer barriers. No,
and you're absolutely right. So this adjacent service or adjacent touch point is beginning to also factor into.
So is the thing that you're saying there, rather than simply assuming that people are going to access all this stuff from their home, you have to work out whether they're actually at home much.
Correct.
And
Absolutely.
if they're not, then try and find them where they are. Is that the
exactly? And to that point, the internet cafe. So, and these are just kind of like, if we were throwing ideas on the wall. So if you throw the idea, internet cafes, they may still be around, but they're probably not in the main drag of the high street. So, what would a new internet cafe look like? That was there to allow someone to say, do you know what, I've got to get my children to get their homework. I will go into the local town because I know they'll get good access, that's safe. There might be someone there who could help them. Meanwhile, I go and do something else as a parent or whatever. So that kind of mindset, only because when there are problems converging, lack of empty stores in empty shop fronts in our towns, caused from another problem. But probably good broadband. They probably already have the services inside these stores. And how do you unlock and join the two together?
Well,
and
actually,
prototype.
I'm finding that there isn't good broadband. Actually, you'd like to think the connectivity was a done deal now, but it's not. And I'm just I had a meeting last Friday where I was talking about how do we list where the Wi-Fi is, so people can log into things. You know, even job centres apparently don't have Wi-Fi necessarily.
Yeah, there's a big difference though between premises where there is a good network connection, and premises where there is a good network connection and public availability or guest availability. But I think as a general statement, to say that most premises on the high street will at least have or be able to get very easily a connection is probably right. But it's also true to say that's all very well, but it's not of any use to the community as such, or to people who are needing to use it unless they are given access to it. I think both of what you say there is probably true at the same time.
Yeah, and I think the thing about this is this type of thinking, you know, this kind of diverse thinking, you know, might not be the answer, but as you go through it, you might unlock and knock over.
I've had a great idea. Why don't we make every single empty shop in the UK a library and make sure that it's open from 7 in the morning till 7 at night?
Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean,
or make sure that there is a library on every shopping street with any vacancies or something. Because there's someone there, the lights on, the Wi-Fi, you're almost defining a modern day library. They can have a few books as well if they really wanted to, you know, but increasingly although it's important to a certain section of society, increasingly it's only one among very many services that libraries provide. And I think that if we could stop closing libraries and start opening them in empty shops, there might be some mileage in that. Because as you say, you then take the capacity for the good network connection that will usually be there, not always, but in most high streets, there will be good backhaul provision of bandwidth, and you connect it up, and crucially, you make it available to the public or whoever needs to use it on whatever basis is necessary. The public library is only one model, but my goodness, it's one that it's kind of stood the test of time. It's understood. It's importantly doesn't expect people to spend money necessarily or every time they visit. I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, the library is a great point. And you know, I spoke to somebody from, I think it was Suffolk Libraries, a very similar conversation than we're having right now. So actually, you end up creating that kind of internet cafe is probably the wrong title, but some kind of community hub. But the other aspect,
well, so is library. If you want to actually, you don't want to call them libraries necessarily, but you want people who are trained in the same way as librarians to be in them. Absolutely. And you want them to be open all the time. The big struggle that libraries currently have is endless staff cuts and endless opening hours cuts. And it seems what's the word? It seems, well, astonishing really, that at the same time as we're trying to make all of these things available, we're actually closing down the one of the main ways that people actually get access to them.
I think it's counterintuitive is the word you're looking for.
It's more than that. I think the word I was looking for probably just about didn't find it.
But I think the important thing is, you know, the one thing the pandemic is beginning to teach us, and again I say beginning, is the people flow. You know, where are people? You know, because we've had empty town centres for such a long time, they're now filling up again. And this is the time to go, do you know what? There is more people now in that. I mean, this is my perception, more people in town centres for lots of different reasons. So whatever we do around digital poverty is not lose sight of that. Yeah, for sure. You know, deliver equipment to people's homes and allow them, for sure. But, you know, don't be surprised then to find that these devices haven't been turned on. Then don't be surprised to think, well, how can that be? Because this person, you know, said they needed help, but they haven't turned it on. Because there are complex reasons behind this, and you know, I think we've got to do a lot more research, which is really what the Alliance is about, is to bring this research. And you know, just another aspect of the research was, you know, the demographic data that in Europe. I mean, so there's been a recent an EU research paper that over Europe, there's about 5-6% of children, and young people are in a digitally disadvantaged situation. But there's some really interesting disparities between which countries. So, for example, I think Romania was 23-24%, quite a high number. Yeah, in Iceland, it was down to 0.03%. And then you go into some of the demographic data in terms of single-parent families, number of children, income levels, and all those other aspects of social social living, and they also are huge factors that will support or not a digital plan. And that's what DPA is trying to do, is to try and get more government interest, which is what's happening. I think produce this roadmap. So I'll say, look, this is what we're doing, and also working with, I think we mentioned before they came on the call, people like the Good Things Foundation, who are doing tremendous work already regarding things like data banks. That we chatted last year about Citizen Sim, this idea that people can contribute to some sort of data bank. And they've done some work with some of the telecommunications providers to try and see if they can create a model to resolve that. Oh, thank you. Brilliant. Oh,
there we go.
Yeah. So they're doing that pilot, as it says there.
Yeah, brilliant.
And so that data bank was sort of, the fledgling idea around a Citizen Sim. But all of this, as you can probably pick up with the sort of the way I'm suggesting, is coming from the community, and not just looking at the data points, because we converged on the data points last year. Let's get 1.5 million laptops from whoever, and the government can supply it and get them shipped out and make it a news story, which is fantastic. But, then what? That isn't going to solve anything. And so we're going to do a lot more work. And I think that's the emphasis, is going to work harder at this, guys. It isn't going to be flicked to switch. It's as equally as tragic as any other kind of poverty, because young people, if you're not online, as we all know, you talked about gaming earlier on. I have a choice to play games or not, but a lot of people will never have that choice. So how do we make sure they have?
So is the DPA aimed at a certain demographic, or is it all ages?
There's a real emphasis on young people, but ultimately it is across all ages, because the European research has said these age group of young people, but equally it's identified that a lot of the parents of these young people are equally digitally disadvantaged, because they also didn't have the opportunity. So we've now got 2 generations of people who have not had exposure to a digital life.
And I think it's also, we've said this before, but it's also, there's a trap when thinking about young people to assume that young people miraculously are able to have all the skills that they need to go online and do things effectively. But unless they've had some support and some training and some education on it, then that's not necessarily true. And depending on how engaged they've been with education, or depending on how well their particular school or other education providers have done this part of their education, will, to a greater or lesser extent, leave them either included or excluded. And I think it's just as important to keep thinking about how young people, at an appropriate level for whatever age they are, right from the youngest children onwards, engage with this stuff and come to be confident in it.
So what's your vision for like 12 months time? Where do you want to be in 12 months, say, just as a measure of what progress needs to be made with the DPA?
Well, I mean, the roadmap is going to, by the end of first half, so that would be the end of June, lay out, the kind of building blocks that we have to have for the 2030 vision. And what I'd hope is that we've got a much deeper alliance in terms of the quality and reach of the people involved. We're attracting people all the time, and I think I've said it, but I'll echo it again. We're looking for more ambassadors, people who feel like me, both a passion as a citizen, but also someone who might have some requisite skills. Yeah, you got the strategy house up on the screen. So really, it's kind of creating this sort of set of outcomes that we can achieve. But I think the role of industry and commerce, I think, is going to be important. We mentioned Currys. We've also got some other organizations who are keen to get involved. And again, that corporate thinking, the corporate world has a lot of opportunity to be involved. So from a HR perspective, a lot of companies are saying, how can we empower our people to also to be involved? So, for example, one of the things about giving maybe pledges where people can say, we'll create a program in our own organization, and that will contribute, let's call it skilled hours that are available. Join the dots, those internet cafe ideas, that people can free up their Friday afternoon and go in and help people to, if I can go online to book an MOT, how can I help someone else? That type of, and again, to watch what happens. Does that help or is that just something that's going to burn out?
And that sounds a bit like a kind of what's the Citizens Advice Bureau for digital almost.
Yeah,
you have volunteer advisors,
digital champions, I think,
trained,
very much so.
Very much so. Yeah.
But building sustainable answers, I think that's the thing. You asked me about what I'd hope for, is that we don't run out of steam. Because with some amazing things being done in the past, and we're revisiting many of them already. So we're going back to what we tried before. Why didn't it work before? And if it wasn't sustainable before, don't just think it's going to happen this time. Look for the reasons why it didn't work, and think about what else someone else has tried to achieve.
I think what I like most about what I see in the Digital Poverty Alliance, just from our conversation and from the website, is this focus on collaboration and joining pre-existing things up to get better value out of them, or to make them more general, or give them a bit more impetus or momentum or whatever. There's too many projects, too many organizations, and too many projects who start from scratch and reinvent something that's been tried several times already and is unlikely to have a lasting impact. And it's great to see a business focused, well, not business focused, but an organization with real clout behind it to focus so almost forensically on collaboration and finding things that already exist. So I think we can certainly be very enthusiastic about that.
Absolutely.
Good.
I mean, there's echoes of the digital champion model that Emma Weston talked about when she was on here recently, and how, I mean, that's been successful. And their latest iteration of that is the collaboration they've done with Capgemini, where Capgemini wanted to do a program to get their staff, an employee engagement program, basically, and they worked with Digital Unite to develop this digital champions model. So people within the organization could learn how to be digital champions for each other, and possibly people externally as well. And I've been introduced that to the West Midlands Combined Authority as a model for us in the region to spread out into other sectors as well, because Capgemini didn't just develop the model for themselves. They created a platform that is available to other people as well. So other companies can buy into this model, pay a small amount, and get all the tools that are there to train. It's Emma Weston calls it Digital Champion Light, but I think once you learn how to help somebody online, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and people they like to get the help, and they like to give the help as well. There's something very nice to feeling about when you can help somebody else. Nick Booth from Podnosh, who was behind the social media surgeries movement not so long ago, calls it the social glow. That the kind of feeling good. Why shouldn't we want to feel good about what we can do when it's not so difficult for us?
Good for your endorphins.
Absolutely.
But I mean, just in terms of the sort of the DPA initiatives and the growth, when you're having a curious mindset, you ask questions of people. And I keep going back to this, the power of crowds. So to this point, without revealing who it is, but I spoke to a Premiership football club, and I didn't know this, but there's still a lot of printed tickets, and there's a lot of money being spent by these clubs to have to post tickets out for games. In my naivety, I thought it was all digitized, but it hasn't. It's now becoming that. But interesting enough, when I then asked the question of this person who is in the right position, digital poverty at your games, I expected him to say, "I've no idea. There are tens of thousands of people in the stadium. How do I know?" But he didn't. He said, "Yeah, about 30%." So what do you mean 30%? He said, "Yeah." He said, "I think there's about 30% of people who cannot get access or use a phone to get into the ground, and they still need, they need to go to the ticket office to get a printed ticket, or they actually want it sent in the post." And whilst this is completely, anecdotal chitter chatter, you kind of think, where there's crowds of people, the assumption is they've all got a smartphone in the pocket, they've all got access to the internet, they all know how to use it. And that struck me. No, they don't. And that was just one football club. And the person who said it will know that to be true. So you kind of think, where there's crowds, assumption that they're all digitally, savvy is probably the wrong one, which was my mistake.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've come across that several times on the show, and anywhere where we've come across policy about digital inclusion, it is saying and reiterating, the Centre for Aging Better, for example, constantly saying, if you are developing a digital service, you must have a non-digital option, because people either don't have or don't want to have a digital option. They want to have paper, they want to have something they can hold in their hands. They don't want to have to use a device, and that should be fine. We shouldn't.
The digital option, the digital service that you introduce can make it easier or cheaper to provide that non-digital route, but the non-digital route must still exist.
Absolutely. Totally. Completely. And I think that awareness for people to realize, I think, was the first thing that struck me, is that I didn't know that, and I'm not saying that that's unique, but a lot of people would also not realize that as well. And again, it goes back to this, to your point completely, which is, if you design something digitally, you've got to have another way, and if there isn't another way, then we're not helping even the digitally savvy people. We're not helping them either, because sometimes we don't design it in a great way, and people don't know how to.
Yeah, I can be quite easily digitally excluded on any given day because I let my phone battery run out, so I can't use my phone for anything.
And services, go down. Facebook goes down, WhatsApp goes down. It's not. We're not.
We even had YouTube go down one week, and we couldn't even broadcast our program.
Well, that's just unbelievable. Did you get compensation? I mean, that's definitely compensation.
Yeah, we'll get our money back.
But I mean, that point recently with Facebook, the ingrained relationship between platforms, that even if we're not a Facebook user or an active Facebook user, we may be using Facebook authentication to access another website. And so when Facebook goes down, we can't get to that website. So we're building a mesh in our own personal lives that is quite a complicated mesh if we wrote it down. And I don't know if anyone's tried, but if you try to write down, and I don't mean you should, but all the services you use in the passwords, it's a complicated mess for lots of us. That we kind of hang together. I mean, I don't know if it's been resolved, but the guy who lost his password for his Bitcoin, which was worth.
There's been a couple of stories about that, where you have no backup of your Bitcoin, whatever it's called, wallet, let's call it, and you forget the password, and by design, you therefore can't get access to it.
Well, this guy, I picked it up on the news. Apparently, his Bitcoin, we bought it 8 years ago, and the value was like $34 million or something, some crazy number. But he's forgotten his password. Now I don't know if he's found it now, but So I think it's all of these things factors into it. So there's shades that we need to work on. So the DPA shift from just looking at the quantitative, the numbers, but equally now, which is Kira's work in her report.
Yeah, no, it looks absolutely fantastic. And I certainly recommend the website for a bit of study for anybody who's interested in any of this stuff.
Excellent material. Paul, you're an ambassador since July. How are they recruiting, and how do people become ambassadors if they're interested?
Well, it's on the website. So if you go, if you could pull the website, the homepage up at the very bottom, there's an apply to become an ambassador button.
So there is, yes.
And have you had, what kind of commitment is it, and is there training or anything like that?
No, there's no training. I think. No, if there is, I didn't get any. But no, no, there's no training. And literally, I think the only requirement is a passion to be part of the resolution and bring in experiences that are relevant. So my contribution is bringing, my kind of diverse thinking, my design thinking contribution. There are others who are coming from industry on the. Oh yeah, great. There you go. Yeah. And in terms of so doing this now, using your own networks to expand the message, to go into talks, attend events, speaking. I've written some blogs, so it depends on your time. So for me, it's very low in time consuming. If I had to put a quantity on it, probably an hour a week or 2 hours a week.
Okay.
But thank you for putting that up. You can see
it's on Twitter and LinkedIn. We know on Twitter it's
this is a document that's linked to from the homepage of the Data Poverty Alliance.org.uk or just .org, forget, website, and there's a button there saying, there it is, apply to become an ambassador.
Just
.org.
Yeah.
So digitalpovertyalliance.org.
.org. Yeah.
And you can find all the stuff you need there. As you say, Paul, it's quite near the bottom of the homepage, but there is there.
Yeah. So you're speaking. You're part of a panel tomorrow, Paul, with the all-party parliamentary group. Which APPG is it? As a matter of interest,
it's the Digital Poverty APPG.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Oh, and you've got
Oh yeah, that is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yes, I forgot. I'm still sharing my screen there.
Brilliant.
So yes.
Yeah, you'd already got.
Okay, great. Yeah.
You were thinking ahead. Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's what I found earlier.
Can other people contribute to that, Paul, or is it a closed meeting?
That's a great question. I just got invited. I think I saw something that people could join, but I've not seen that page before, so I don't know if there's anything at the bottom.
We can share the link, can't we, on the YouTube page, Sweyn, and see if anybody else wants to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking.
It doesn't really say anything about events. I suspect that all party groups are not public hearings. I suspect.
Looking at the list of people attending, it looked like it'd been pre-invited people.
Okay.
Yes, I think that's
looking at this.
Not like a select committee where the coverage would be on the television automatically and covered as part of Parliament's business. Yeah. The all-party groups are less formal than that.
Yeah,
and they might publish things, but I don't think they would normally broadcast all their meetings.
Will you blog about it, Paul? Will you blog about your experience?
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
Almost certainly, because I've put one blog up on the DP already, and that was very much around SIM card swapping in schools, because my wife told the story when she was at the school, the parents would change their phone numbers because they were moving SIM cards around.
You told us that last year. Yes.
And that was one of the reasons that sparked me off last year was
to get all the data from everywhere.
Yeah. What's driving that behavior? Why would they do that? And actually, a lot of it is to do with because those parents are getting through their day, and they're outside with the other parents, and this is what they do outside the gates and when they're walking along the road. So going back to that, understanding people's behavior. Why would you do that? And even if I've given you a brand new device, you still do it because there's a lot more needs to happen than just handing someone a brand new smartphone.
Yeah. Great. We look forward to reading more about that.
This section near the top of your homepage.
Okay, brilliant.
I unaccountably failed to notice earlier.
You're ahead of me anyway, so you've
Okay, MPs will come together. Okay, so cross-party MPs, yeah.
So it's round tables and discussions, bringing lots of people from different backgrounds, including from government.
The sessions are closed. There you go. But notes are published each day. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Great. We'll check up on that for next week.
Giving the Data Poverty Alliance website as where the notes will appear. So that's it's all coming together. It's
all on the same place. Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. And Paul, if people want to contact you again, as we usually do, tell people where to contact our special guests. Where's the best place to contact you these days now?
I mean, by email. I mean, LinkedIn's great. If people want to get to me on LinkedIn, that would be my preference, I suppose, or email. Let's
say LinkedIn, and
we'll put that on.
Make sure there's a link to that on
in
the description of this video.
Because I can connect people on LinkedIn. If someone wants to connect to someone, I can
try and put as many of these links as possible in the description. It might not be today, but they will appear there.
Fantastic. That's great news.
So we've got a few more stories, Paul, we want to just pick up before we close the show today. And please do comment if you have anything to say about these. And the first one is about libraries, as you can imagine.
Surprise.
Still one of our favorite topics. And the headline is Hotspot in a Cold Climate, the Melbourne Library in Australia that transformed lockdown for struggling families. And according to the 2021 Australian Digital Inclusion Index, 92% of Australians earning less than $52,000 a year would have to pay more than 5% of their household income to access a quality, reliable internet connection, and 14% would need to pay more than 10%. So in the midst of lockdown, Yarra Plenty Regional Library allocated $50,000 for a pilot program to give Wi-Fi dongles with 60 gig per month of data to 100 families for a year, drawing lessons from similar schemes in the US and Europe. The library partnered with a not-for-profit support service, Whittlesea Community Connections, to help identify families in need, and Vodafone, who supplied the suitable product. And the quote from I think it's the librarian at the Regional Library Service said, yeah, the Chief Executive of Europe Plenty Regional Library, Jane Cowell, said, tech access and digital literacy is integral for contemporary public libraries, but it's also integral for every community member to participate in society. You're really left out if you don't have that access. More and more government services can only be accessed on the internet. And that speaks to what we've just been talking about, really. And also the Databank, Paul, I read that article from Good Things Foundation that Sweyn had on screen there just a few minutes ago, said that in the pilot, they had something like 7 gig of data per month for people, and they realized that wasn't enough. So they had to increase it to 15. I think if you scroll down, Sweyn, you'll see.
So I've jumped to that website.
Yeah.
There we are.
Yeah, there we are. The pilot highlighted 7 gig wasn't enough to help people access all the essential services they need. So next year, the monthly amount of data they're providing is increasing from 7 gig to 15 gig. And this is within their online centers network. But they're going to be distributing data through a network of thousands of community partners to the people they already know. So it's good to hear they're increasing, because in Northfield Community Partnership, Paul, that I'm now working for, laptops that we loan out have 50 gig of data on the dongle, and people get a 4-week loan and they can renew it if they want. But 50 gig we think is more realistic. Now when people are live streaming and watching videos and stuff like that, hopefully they won't run out of data on 50 gig. And on the laptops that we got from the community, the Good Things Foundation, as part of the Nominate program recently as well, there was 20 gig of data a month for 6 months. So that was, again, much more realistic. Yeah. I mean, are you calculating things like that, Paul, in the DPA, the amount of data people need every month?
There is. I mean, one of my colleagues is Freddie Quirk, who is he's the CIO of the Times Education Supplement. So there's quite a bit of work on the numerics behind what is sufficient in terms of data access. So Freddie's a good person to be connecting to as well. I've spent less time looking at the quantitative stuff,
right?
But more of the behavioral side and how we can connect dots between people.
It certainly sounds like a new aspect of things, Sweyn, that we haven't considered that much or talked about that much before, the behavioral side. And I think we will be coming back to you, Paul, to ask you for more, perhaps other people we can talk to in this space as well, because it sounds new or different than what we've been talking about so far.
No, I'd love to. I mean, I think that whole behavior, I mean, we're learning a lot with the pandemic, people's behavior. Why do people do that? And that whole nudge thing, I mean, the government's got a nudge unit for this. So there is evidence already in other places that we could be able to move into that might explain why people aren't using that smartphone. Why are they swapping that SIM card? And how can we deal with that behavior, and how can we not try and stop them, but actually take advantage of, okay, if that's what you're going to do, this is how we can still help you.
Pauline, you're mute for some reason suddenly.
I think I might be asking you to come to the Combined Authority Digital Inclusion Group as well, Paul, to talk about that, because anything we can get out there to kind of decision makers and influencers sounds really brilliant. Okay, next story. Sorry, the next story is on overcoming barriers to digital inclusion for older persons from Dr. Alison Bryant, and this is on devex.com. And they're saying by 2050, over 20% of the world's population will be over 60 years old, a 3-fold increase from 2000. And today, far less than half of those older adults are online, and the percentage decreases significantly as age increases. Add to that equation the projection that nearly 8 in 10 of the world's older persons will be living in low or middle income regions where digital infrastructure often has even more barriers to overcome. And member states of this network, civil society groups, the private sector and other stakeholders, they're saying, must come together to address the most critical issues that impede the ability of older persons to get online. So they're saying in particular, there's a need to address availability, access and affordability of high-speed, low-cost internet and connected devices, digital literacy education for older persons, and digital accessibility and inclusive design, what we've just said, of devices and experiences. And they make 3 points: that the digital access gap may only get bigger if action isn't taken, that digital literacy must be a part of the broader lifelong learning agenda, and digital accessibility means looking through the lens of inclusivity. And they say that we may need to examine more tactical and practical solutions like user experience and inclusive interface design standards, along with broader best practices for the product and service development process. They point out that the UN recently commissioned a digital accessibility primer, a great initial step in this area, but more guidance would be helpful. And they want to look across the technology opportunity landscape to identify ways to leap over design barriers, including leveraging voice recognition for older persons instead of relying on web interfaces. And we've talked about this before, haven't we, Sweyn?
Yeah.
Definitely. They also point out that measuring success is vital. And I think that's, sometimes we wait to the end of a project before we measure the success, but actually we need to be measuring it as we go along to make sure that we are achieving what we're trying to achieve. So some good reflections there. Another story we have is about New York City, and they're aiming to close the digital divide for 1.6 million residents to advance racial equity. And this is from the New York office of the mayor, who announced recently the largest step of any city in American history towards providing affordable broadband for all through its internet master plan. New York will be the first city in the nation to reverse the digital redlining that has left communities of color disconnected, ensure that minority women-owned business enterprises share in the economic growth of the broadband industry, and incentivize at scale high-quality, affordable internet service options for New Yorkers. And they're aiming to reach up to 1.6 million New Yorkers in the next 36 months by using $157 million to build publicly owned open access broadband infrastructure. And they're also designating a wide range of companies, large, small, including multiple companies owned by minority and women-owned business enterprises, to provide fast, reliable and affordable connectivity options to an additional 70,000 residents of the city and 150,000 residents in the surrounding communities by early 2022. And already the city is in the process of bringing free or low-cost internet connectivity options for up to 40,000 residents in 18 New York City Housing Authority developments by the end of the year. And this historic initiative brings newly affordable connectivity to a majority of the residents, with options to further scale affordable broadband to all neighborhoods citywide. Well, that sounds like something I'd like to see cities up and down this country copying as well, because it does make a big difference.
I think I've a bit of a hobby horse on this one. I think in places such as New York City, where almost all public services are run by the city, one organization, one mayor, then they have historically been able to take a number of initiatives like this, not just in digital poverty or digital inclusion. One of the main troubles that the UK has is the fragmentation and disorder in its service provider landscape, and the fact that there are, in any one, what you and I might call community, like a place with a primary school, let's say, a primary school catchment area, there'll be dozens of public agencies delivering stuff, whether it's transport or health or whatever. Those countries like Finland and the US, where cities tend to have sometimes quite disparate in size, but unified public services in each community, tend to make better progress on this stuff than places which segment their public services and or privatize random bits of them. I think there's just no question about that. If you look at the Scandinavian countries, of which this is also true, the municipality there has, well, for one thing, there's 10 times the number of local authorities in most European countries than there are in England or Scotland or Wales. I'm not sure about Northern Ireland. So it's not that the scale is smaller, it's that real communities are packaged together into real community authorities. And there isn't a kind of an obsession with making things quite narrow in scope but equal in size, which automatically means that you get overlaps, you get different random collections of agencies active in different places. Now, as far as I understand it, the metro mayors in England were meant to do something about this, but but by adding one. Good luck with that.
Totally agree. No, you're right. It's not time to be fragmented.
No, definitely.
Again,
this shows how, if you've got control of all the bits and pieces, you can actually bring them all together if you've got the political will. Even if you have the political will and it's fragmentary and there's different regulations and statutes authorizing different bits and pieces of the state to do various different bits and pieces of things, it's really difficult.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to hearing more from the APPG about that. Hopefully that'll be one place where things can start getting knitted up. And we've come to the end of the show, fortunately or unfortunately. Thank you very much to Paul for being such a brilliant guest again.
Yes,
and
thank you,
we're
Paul.
fascinated with what you're doing, and I wish you every success and look forward to hearing more as the weeks and months go on. And thanks everybody else for listening to us, and we hope you have a great week. Have a good week, everybody.